Alright, in this video we are going to be taking a look at the free-to-play Salamangreat deck in regular ranked mode. We're going up against diamond opponents, and this version of the deck, I have put in some of the cards that would not be in the Attribute 4 event, just again to compete in ranked mode, but it's not very many. I think we're playing like 2 Lady Debug and the Access Code Talker, so these cards will not be available in the Attribute 4, but again, neither will half of these cards that the opponent is playing, like the Grandmaster Chi. So we're just evening the playing field a little bit. But before we get into the actual match analysis, make sure you check the description or the info card in the top right to see the link to the beginner's guide on how to build this deck. You're going to be very surprised as to how this deck can perform with some of the top tier stuff in the meta right now, and it will be a good deck to use as a budget option for the Event 4 event that is coming up in Master Duel on I think April the 19th, 2023. So seeing how the opponent sets up their board, this is a very powerful turn 1 SWORDSOUL play. They've got a Chi monster negate, they've got a Baron the Floor Omni negate, they used Emergence to search for their Protos, which is going to prevent the special summon of monsters of a particular attribute. If they declared fire, we were done for, but because they went first, they don't know what we're playing. Dark is the safest option, and we don't care about that. But this Protos will be a problem if we don't get it off the field, because they'll just call fire next turn and then destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute, and then until the end of the next turn I can't special summon my fire monsters, which means I lose the game. So this is going to be a really tough board to crack, right? They're going to negate a monster, negate anything, a face down card that might be like a Blackout or a Forbidden Droplet or something. They've got hand traps, most likely Maxi, Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, something along those lines. And they've got the Protos. So how is Salamangreat going to deal with this? How is a free-to-play deck going to deal with something that's top tier like SWORDSOUL? Okay, we're going to start off by normal summon Buffalo. And again, if you watch the deck list video, Max C is the crux of combo decks. If we try to play through this Max C, they're going to draw 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards, and we can't have that happen. So we absolutely need to make sure we negate that. And this is why I talk about the first ultra rare points that you get in your free-to-play version of this deck. You want to spend them on Ash Blossom, and you want to spend them on Call by the Grave. We are going to Ash Blossom first, because if the opponent opts to negate, which they do with Baron de Floor, we can follow up with the Call by the Grave. So we were able to, in the end, banish and negate the Maxi, which means that we can now continue to play through with our turn. The Baron will negate the Ash Blossom, which will not negate the Maxi. However, the Call by the Grave ends up negating it in the end anyways. So turn 1 play, link off the Buffalo, go into Balings. We have to discard the Gazelle because it's the only Cyberse monster we have. So we're going to go ahead and do that and trigger the Balings to search for Field Spell. But the opponent does indeed have a Forbidden Droplet, which sends a Pot of Desires to negate our Balings. So that means no Field Spell for us. But we were able to draw into a Will of the Salamangreat as well as a second Roar. And this card is actually really good. I play 2 of it in the deck and I explain why. Because it's essentially a continuous monster reborn with a nice effect to summon multiple monsters in combination with a Link Salamangreat. But because we knew we had Signet Mining in hand, if we drew into like a Spinny or a Jack Jaguar or something that we can benefit off of discarding while we search for another Salamangreat card, like we can search for another Gazelle or a Foul, we had extension plays past what's on the board. Because you might think, well, this is really pathetic, like you can't even do anything. But again, analyzing the game state, the opponent has used one of their Omni Negates already, their face down card, and discarded the card in their hand. So the only thing we have left to worry about really is this Chi. However, like I mentioned, we do need to get this Protos off the field. Even though it's not doing anything right now, we have to get this off the field because next turn it's going to shut us down. So we're going to go ahead and Signet Mining, grab the Foul, and then activate Will of the Salamangreat, activate it to bring back the Gazelle, attempt to activate Gazelle effect, and the opponent uses their final negate on board, or the final interruption in the Grandmaster to negate the Gazelle. So we don't get to dump our card. We would likely have dumped Spinny so we can bring it back to the field, but that's okay. We're now going to go into Splash Mage. Everything here so far is free to play, legal for the event. On the opponent side, Protos is not legal for the event. Chi is not legal for the event. So if you're going up against SWORDSOUL, you're going to be going up against a heavily neutered version of it where it's not going to be nearly as powerful. And you can see right now, we're actually able to play through a lot of the top tier interruptions that a deck like SWORDSOUL can put up. So off Splash Mage, we're going to bring back Buffalo. Now, why would we do this? We've already used the effect this turn. Well, because it's a level 3. So is Gazelle. And I talk about this again in the deck list video, so you, again, want to make sure you check that out. We're going to go into another card you're going to want to craft. It's just super rare, pretty easy to craft, Mirage Stalio. This has 2 critical effects we're going to use this turn. The first is detach a material, bring out another resource, another Salamangreat resource. This is another card in rotation that we can use in the grind game to bring back later on. But more importantly, with the card we bring, we're going to link off the Mirage Stalio and that card for the Sunlight Wolf. Now this is going to do something very important. It is going to trigger the Mirage Stalio to target a monster on the opponent's field and return it to the hand. And what are we going to get rid of? It has to be the Protoss. The Protoss is only summonable by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes from their graveyard. They've already banished their cards. They've got no monsters to use in their graveyard right now, which means this is a dead card in their hand. They can't bring it back to the field. So we accomplished our goal in getting the Mirage Stalio, or the Protoss off the field with the Mirage Stalio. Unfortunately, there's not too much else we can do since playing through the opponent's interruptions were pretty tough. But you're going to see what we're going to do here. We're going to set the Salamangreat War. This card, when the opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, and we control a Salamangreat Link monster, we negate the effect and destroy that card. What is the opponent going to do? They've got a Baron de Fleur. They're going to activate the Baron de Fleur to pop a card on our field, and when they do, we negate and destroy it. So they draw a card. Are they going to draw into something that can make them play? No, they likely drew like Moye or something that they can't play with. Or sorry, not Moye, because they could reveal Protoss, but maybe like a Taya or something, and they have nothing to banish, so they can't really extend. Sure enough, they do indeed activate the Baron effect, and we bait them out, negating and destroying it. They're going to use Chisao to try to beat over the Wolf, and we have the Balings in the graveyard to banish itself to protect the destruction of a Salamangreat card. So again, when Salamangreat cards will be destroyed by battle or card effect, banish this card from your graveyard. Another utility reason of why Salamangreat works really well. Not only is this card searching you your field spell, which was negated unfortunately, but we can search for it next turn, but it also saved the Wolf from getting destroyed in this instance. The opponent reveals they're on no extension, so did they draw another hand trap maybe? We're going to top deck a Lady Debug. So this card is not legal for the event, but you can replace this with any engine card. It's not a huge deal, so you don't necessarily need to play this. We're going to summon it though, and it will get negated by the Chisao, and they reveal that they drew a SWORDSOUL Sacred Summit, which they can't use because they have nothing in their graveyard to reborn. So the Lady Debug is going to get negated, but it's fine because we're going to use Splash Mage to bring out another material. And keep in mind, we also have the Will. This is a free monster reborn to bring back yet another Salamangreat resource, but we don't even need to use it yet. We're going to now go ahead and link off the Wolf and the Splash Mage to go into Transcode Talker. The opponent kind of sees the writing on the wall and they're going to scoop. So what we were going to do next is sack the 2 monsters on the field to link them off into Update Jammer, activate Will of the Salamangreat, bring back the Wolf. Now we have multiple Link 2s and the Link 3 on board. We can link off into, if you're in the Attribute 4 event, the Heat Soul, which could attack directly twice. Combined with the Transcode Talker, you would have enough attack to beat over the Chisao, but again, Chisao wouldn't be legal for the event. But in open ranked mode, you go for Access Code Talker and go for game. The opponent had no way to stop it, and that is how a free-to-play Salamangreat deck can overcome a top-tier deck like SWORDSOUL. Right, in this next matchup, we are going to see Salamangreat with a very mediocre hand, in fact, a pretty bad hand, going up against yet another opponent, but we don't know what deck they're on just yet. So, starting off, we are going to summon the Buffalo, link off for the Balings, and trigger the effects to search for field spell. The opponent reveals they are on Tearlaments. What does Salamangreat do against Tearlaments? We just lose, right? Well, let's see. So they mill, and they mill the Sulliek, which is going to allow them to search, but we are also going to be able to get our field spell, pitch a Jack Jaguar. So in this version, I am running 2 Jack Jaguars. But again, for the Event 4 event, the Lady Debug won't be legal, so you might want to play 2 Jacks instead, or you can sub this out for Mathmech cards. It's totally fine. But off the draws, we actually draw 2 pretty decent cards in the Salamangreat Rage and the Circle, and we also grab our field spell to hand with the Balings. So the opponent is going to grab their monster, they grab Rhino Heart off the Sulliek, and we're going to go ahead and continue to extend. So with Balings on the field, we've already used our normal summon here. We're going to have to use the Circle, which is a free search. We're going to grab Gazelle. Why? Because we're going to link off the Balings with its own material in order to bring out another one, which triggers the effect of Gazelle. Gazelle is now going to get special summoned, which is going to dump a Spinny into the graveyard. Spinny is going to special summon itself to the field and go into, yet again, the Mirage Stalio. You can see how this card is very important for the deck. You definitely want to craft this. So again, make sure you check that deck list description in the description to see how you want to build the deck, how you can make it free to play. Detach the Spinny, which would normally get banished if it was left as a monster, but because it's detaching as an Xyz material, it goes to the graveyard, which means we can use it again next turn. And we're actually going to bring out the Falco. Now, why would we bring out Falco? Because we actually want to use the effect perhaps to bring out... Oh, even, again, check that deck list in the description. Falco is a level 4. We knew we had Jack Jaguar in the graveyard that we were going to bring back. These 2 level 4s make Bagooska. Bagooska is going to stop Tearlaments for their entirety of their turn if they can't out this card, which they are unlikely to out on their turn, right? They need to set a trap card or something to get it off the field because everything they summon is going to be negated. This is how we have to stall out this match in order to overcome Tearlaments. So this is why Bagooska can be very powerful. But again, you know, in the attribute 4 event, you know, Tearlaments aren't going to be lethal. Halfness is a dark monster. But if you go up against other, you know, I don't want to say top tier decks, but other like very like negate heavy or combo heavy decks, and you're going first, you can set up Bagooska, and you know you don't have to worry about their plays most likely on their first turn. So let's see what happens here. They're going to activate Foolish Burial Goods. They're going to dump Grief. They're going to grab Sharon, or sorry, special summon Sharon by pitching Rhino, and then they're going to mill Crime and another Rhino and an instant fusion. They're going to activate Rhino effect, bring Rhino to the field by dumping Murley, activate Rhino, activate Murley. The Tearlaments combos never end. So Murley's going to resolve first and bring out a Kaleido Heart in defense, but the Rhino Heart on the field is negated because of Bagooska, and the Kaleido Heart that comes to the field is also going to be negated because of Bagooska. And then the Keldo normal summon is switched to defense, but the opponent is not done yet. They have the Underworld Goddess, so they did have an out to our Bagooska by getting it off the field, because this card can be link summoned with using 1 card I control as well. So they used the Bagooska. Again, this card won't be legal in the event it's light. So once again, playing through top tier cards with just regular old Salamangreat fire monsters, right? But we are going to trigger some effects here. The opponent is going to opt to activate their Shuffler to prevent us from getting the Will of the Salamangreat back into our field. And we are now going to make a big misplay here because Underworld Goddess says this Link Summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they target this card. And this card, I talked about this in the decklist video, does not target. It targets your monster, but then you destroy cards without targeting up to that monster's Link rating. So I'm thinking like, alright, I'm not going to destroy the Kaleido Heart because it's just going to come back. I'm going to destroy the Underworld Goddess. Nope, because it doesn't target it. So we make a huge misplay there and lose that free resource. But thankfully, that's all the opponent has. They had to use every single card in order to out our Bagooska. Now we can further extend because the opponent right now doesn't have any interruption. So once again, we're going to normal summon Buffalo, go into Balinks, and then go through the same play. This time discarding the Foxy and drawing 2. Now we're going to link off the Mirage Dahlia. Just like in the Sword Soul match, Mirage Dahlia used as a link material, we can target and return a monster to the hand. So we're actually going to opt to return the Underworld Goddess, which leaves the Kaleido Heart on field, which is a problem still, but we're going to see how we're going to deal with it. So now we're going to use the Sanctuary effect to summon Wolf with its own material. Then that's going to allow us to special summon the Gazelle. Gazelle is going to dump the Will of the Salamangreat, which is going to be able to be revived with the Sunlight Wolf's second effect. When it's special summoned with its own material, you can target a Salamangreat spell or trap in the graveyard, add it to your hand. So that gives us that free resource there. We are now going to special summon the Jack Jaguar from the graveyard by returning a monster to the extra deck. Now, it's a little odd. I probably should have returned the Mirage Dahlia. I'm not sure why I didn't, but that was a misplay. You definitely want to return that back to the extra deck because we can summon it again and use it if needed. But off of the Sunlight Wolf effect, we're going to grab back a Gazelle, bring out a Splash Mage, revive a monster again, and then link those off into Transcode Talker. If you don't know what I'm doing yet, I will explain it in just a second. But we're going to now bring back the Spinny and link those off into Update Jammer. So this setup here is all legal for the event, right? But instead of going into Access Code Talker, you might need to go into another Cyberse link. I wasn't playing it at the time for some reason, but Heat Leo is the card that you'd likely want to go into. But because we are still in open rank, we're going to go into access code talker. Now, this is not over by any means, because when Kaleido Heart is destroyed, they're going to come back and they're going to target a card on the field to shuffle back into the deck. This is where Transcode Talker is super useful, and you can see that we made an effort to keep Transcode Talker on the field so that it's co-linked with the access code. Because Transcode says, while this card is co-linked, which it is right now, right? Downward arrow on access code, upward arrow on Transcode Talker. This card and its co-linked monsters gain 500 attack, which is very helpful. But also, your opponent cannot target them with any card effect. So any card that would target access code, like the Kaleido Heart to spin it back, will not be able to do so. The only targetable card is the Sanctuary. So we're going to go ahead and activate the access code effects, boost up the access code talker attack. It can now attack twice because it had Update Jammer used as material, and the Kaleido Heart is sent to the graveyard. Activate Kaleido Heart effect, bring it back, and pop a card on the field. First, they send a monster, but they only can send the Sanctuary back to the deck, which again, if the game ended up extending out further, we could just search it out again with the Bailings. Now we're going to go ahead and activate access code once again to get the Kaleido Heart off the field. This leaves an open field and us able to attack directly twice with the access code for game, and that's how SALAMANGREAT was able to overcome TEARLAMENT playing on turn 0.